As usual, today is Thursday, November 7th, 2024, and we've got a lot of Canadian news to cover, but we have to start with Donald Trump, and we have to start with the meltdowns because, of course, there were meltdowns, and the meltdowns give you a strange feeling of satisfaction because these people are so crazy that a slap in the face of reality, it's like tossing a cold bucket of water over somebody, right? Like, wake up, you idiot. And so it's kind of fun. But there's situations where people respond by like cutting off all their hair. We've got those. But there are also situations where official people say crazy things, and we've got those too. So I've got a whole big group of tabs to start with, mixed up with Canadians and Americans who are responding to Trump's election. And it's a lot of schadenfreude, which is how you say that word, I've heard. And we'll talk about it in just a minute. But holy cow, there's a lot of Canadian news too, so it's going to be a big show. They're removing evidence from the Picton farm. They were still trying to steal the U.S. election. That's where we're going to start, and then we'll look at all the schadenfreude. Proof that the 2020 U.S. election was stolen. We've got that today too. The ghost of Peanut. Yes, absolutely. Canadian government is shutting down TikTok, so that's interesting. No one has been fired. No one will be fired for the arrivescam scandal until maybe Polyev gets in, but even then, who knows, right? Big changes to election rules in Bill C-65. We'll look at that. German government collapsing. Yes, they are. Did you know Gian Giovanni went to Yale? I had absolutely no idea that he went to Yale. I thought, wow, that's crazy. When the reporter was trying to smear him in saying one of those crazy things about Trump, they were saying, do you know that Pierre Poilievre knows somebody who knows JD Vance? Right? Like, oh my gosh. It's terrifying. And that person is Gian Giovanni because he went to Yale. So like, he's a smart dude, right? For law school. I didn't go to law school at Yale. I wonder if he knows what skull and bones are. Agile Nations Charter and lots more. So let's get started. That's not what I usually say. Anyway, Trump. Anonymous says, Kamala Harris, this is yesterday, and they were trying to steal the election until they realized they just couldn't. And the chess analogy here, Trump plays chess. And so while you're playing chess, you get one move. That's all you get. So the joy of chess is you have to put your contingency plan in place while the other person is putting their contingency plan in place in the open, right? You're watching them do it while they're watching you do it. And you're developing the left side of the board or the right-hand side of the board in hopes that when you place those pieces, when you put those pieces there, your opponent doesn't understand why they're there until they run into them and they can't move there because the square is under control by your piece that you already put there in anticipation of them moving there once you start executing your plan, right? So in the same way, Trump views this, I think, as a chessboard, and he's in a situation where he has campaigned for the 2024 election since 2016, and he knew that's what he was going to do, I think. And going through, when we got to this point, when we got to yesterday, the people who wanted to take him down went to their old playbook, and they found they couldn't take those squares because Trump occupied them already. He's already beaten them. He already moved his pieces there. They ignored it because they had a short view of the timeline. They thought 2020 was the only one they had to figure out. And Trump thought, forget that. I'm going to wait. I'm going to give him 2020 and I'll wait and I'll take 2024. And when I take 2024, they won't be prepared because they're idiots. And he was right. He was right. He moved his pieces. They saw him move his pieces and they ignored his pieces. And they said, we're so strong and we're so powerful. We can take you out in 2020. He said, okay. And they did. And he rolled with it. So yesterday, Anonymous says, Kamala hasn't conceded, as of yet, and this is yesterday at 9:18 a.m., as of yet, and there are growing calls for an investigation to a litany of election irregularities, including direct influence through bomb threats by Russia. Supporters are urging a recount in affected swing states. However, yesterday afternoon, actually when I was at lunch yesterday, Kamala Harris finally concedes the election to Donald Trump. She calls him through a call. She was scheduled to do a press conference. When I started lunch, the news was, press conference at 6 for Kamala Harris to address the nation. And I was like, and my friend said, she's going to concede. And I said, does it say concede or does it say address the nation? And he said, it says address the nation. I said, okay, she's not conceding that. And then midway through lunch, he said, oh, she called Donald Trump to concede. And I thought that's insane, right? So she called him around 2 o'clock or no, 1:30 or something like that. And so that's, I think, not necessarily proof positive, but a good indication that there was a contingency plan in place, and the contingency plan was Trump was occupying those squares. So schadenfreude means taking joy or pleasure from learning of or witnessing the trouble, failure, or pain, suffering, or humiliation of another. Right? It's borrowed from the German. And how do you say this word?
Person's misfortune, or in other words, the experience of pleasure, joy, or self-satisfaction that comes from learning of or witnessing the troubles, failures, or humiliation of another. Very common on the internet in particular, isn't it? How do you go about pronouncing this word? Schadenfreude. Schadenfreude. Schadenfreude.
So there you go. Schadenfreude is what we're going to experience now. That guy says, this is a meme from The Wizard of Oz, the good witch. Remember, no matter how much you cry like a little bitch, Trump will still be your president, right? And that guy says, the radiant energy of pure schadenfreude is glowing out from progressives right now is most satisfying, right? Yes, there's lots of people. Our MSM is the enemy of democracy says, I agree, it feels great. MJ says, I'm not even embarrassed to admit how much I'm enjoying watching the loud liberals lose their minds. It's like it's my birthday. Here is a little tiny bit of The View. Christian says, the hosts of The View are currently having an epic meltdown live on television. This is the best thing you'll watch all day. Here's just a few minutes. Well, we won't do it long, but just enough.
Yeah.
It was pretty red last night.
I don't know. I'm profoundly disturbed. I think if you look at the New York Times this morning, the headline was America makes a perilous choice. I think that in 2016, we didn't know what we would get from a Trump administration, but we know now. And we know now that he will have almost unfettered power. And so I worry not about myself, actually. I don't worry about my station in life. I worry about the working class. I worry about my mother, a retired teacher. I worry about our elderly and their Social Security and their Medicare. I worry about my children's future, especially my daughter, who now has less rights than I have. And I remember my father telling me many, many years ago that I was the first person in his family to enjoy full civil rights. And now I have less civil rights than I had when he told me that. So again, I'm profoundly disturbed that the 14th Amendment of the Constitution did not prevent someone who participated in an insurrection from becoming president of the United States.
All of these talking points are false. Like January 6th is a false flag. It didn't happen in the way they say it happened, right? Yes, there were people at the Capitol. No, they were not doing an insurrection. People were telling them to go into the Capitol. All of the people in jail for January 6th should not be in jail. They're putting political prisoners in jail under false pretenses, using the whole apparatus of the state against them. So it's terribly inappropriate, right? And she's saying, "Oh, I'm so worried. I'm wringing my hands. I'm so worried. And millions of women are watching this, and they're like, oh, "Wow, she's worried. I'm worried." Right? Like, this is not productive. But I mean, this is what they're paid to do, right? This is just mainstream media pushing out propaganda, brainwashing people. Here's AOC doing what she's paid to do too. Here she goes, talking about the same stuff.
We are about to enter.
Oh, it's too fast. Sorry. Too fast.
Political period that will have consequences for the rest of our lives. We cannot give up. We now find ourselves in a time in history that has precedent, and we find ourselves, I believe, in a time where there are, let's say, peers in history of mass movements of people that mobilize to protect one another in times of fascism and authoritarianism. And this is the era that we are poised to enter. Donald Trump has talked about turning the military on U.S. citizens that he deems his domestic political enemies. Authoritarians and people that he affiliates closely with and strongmen abroad, in regimes like that, it is not uncommon to jail political dissidents or legislative opponents.
January 6th, they indicted Trump 3 times, and they tried to jail him on like ridiculously false pretenses over a loan, a mortgage that got paid back, and everybody was happy with it. And like the bank said, there's no crime here. What are you talking about? Are you trying to indict him for that? You're throwing him in jail for that? You're going to send him to Rikers for that? And the January 6ers, they protested a crooked government and got encouraged by operatives from 3 letter agencies to go into the Capitol building. And then those people got arrested and savagely dealt with by the law. And that's exactly what she's going to accuse Trump of? Really? Are you kidding me right now, AOC? I can't believe that AOC is actually a person who is representing people, because she is clearly a puppet, I think. Right here is just a crazy liberal who's cutting her hair, and she doesn't understand how the clippers work, because if your hair is too long and dense and stuff, you can't cut it off with the clippers. You have to like cut it short with scissors, and she gets there. But anyway, here's her. Libs of TikTok says, this woman shaved her head to protest Trump's win and to fight the patriarchy. This might be the best meltdown yet. I don't know. Shit's okay. It's all right. It's like, I've seen better meltdowns. The woman I think it was a woman in the green like windbreaker thing screaming at the sky, that one's the best one. I think that stands as the best one. Here's this crazy girl.
Just woke up this morning feeling spicy. You guys feel spicy? Because I do. All right. I don't know how to use this thing. Let's see what happens. Is this
hair clippers are not that difficult.
Cutting off hair.
And it's going to hurt. Like if she's doing this and then she actually caught something, it would hurt. Like it would pull.
I'm going to have to cut it shorter than that. Buzz it down, right? I think that this is too...
And then she progresses to scissors.
Yes, scraps.
No. She progresses to scissors.
Fuckers are doing. But I don't know, man. We are embarrassing on the world stage. Oh, God. Oh, my goodness. Seriously? Oh, I've never had short hair before, ever. It's kind of fun. All right, I'm just going to keep chopping away here because this is literally going to take forever if I don't. Cut all the hair off. You know why? I'm not going to dye it anymore. I'm going to try and grow it out anymore. I'm not going to style it anymore. Fucking done. I will not be giving my money to the beauty industry anymore. I will not be giving my money to anyone that helps support misogyny and the patriarchy and keeping women down and making women think that we need to look a certain way or be a certain way, or fuck you. Fuck you. Women.
Goodness. So brainwashing really does harm people. It has real material harms. Here's Chrystia Freeland talking about Trump. This is 3 minutes. True North says Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland refers to Trump's win as a moment of great change for the world and a big national challenge for Canada. I don't think it's a big national challenge for Canada unless Trump sends all the migrants north, which would be bad. Here's Jagmeet Singh talking about this as well. And I think he's very out of touch. He says people woke up feeling crushed, I think is the word he uses. Here we go.
I think a lot of folks woke up today and woke up really worried, really afraid, felt crushed. And I want you to know that now is the time for us to come together to defend Canadian interests. I know that the results of Trump, right now what it looks like Trump's election, is going to have serious impacts on Canadians. So we need to come together, all parties, all leaders, and put Canadian interests first. We have to protect Canadian jobs. We have to be prepared for the impacts of potential tariffs and what that would mean for our economy, for manufacturing, for jobs in Canada. We need to be very united to say, whatever our differences are when it comes to Canadian interests and Canadian jobs, we're all going to work together to defend Canada, to defend Canadian jobs, to defend Canadian interests. That's our priority. Donc, je sais que...
So, when we negotiated the USMCA, we didn't prioritize Canadian interests. We actually unless you think Canadian interests are LGBTQ and communism. Other than that, we didn't prioritize Canadian interests at all. They were saying you need to protect women's rights, which is code for LGBT rainbow mafia nonsense. So I don't believe Jagmeet Singh. Although when he says Canadian interests, that is what he's talking about, right? He's talking about all of the socialist crap that they're pushing forward, the Liberal NDP whiffers, the WEFers, right? Gov.exe says, Jagmeet Singh says Canadians are worried that Donald Trump will cost Canadians their jobs and make life less affordable. Sorry, Jagmeet, Canadians are far more worried about your ties to Khalistani extremists than they are about Trump. Maybe it's time you leave. So there you go. This is 21 seconds.
Canadians are worried that Donald Trump's plans will hurt people. They're particularly worried that his plans to impose across-the-board tariffs are going to hurt Canadian jobs. It's going to mean that the cost of everything is going to go up. So will the Prime Minister today stand up today and say that Donald Trump's plans are wrong?
Hear, hear. Hear, hear.
The incoming president of the United States plans are wrong. Do that right now. I mean, give me a break, really. Claudia is a Nova Scotian MP she's the leader of the Nova Scotia NDP, and she's MLA for Dartmouth. So she's provincial, and she's got pronouns in her profile. So you can see where this is going. And she says, a message from Nova Scotians. Like many of you, I woke up to the chilling election results in the United States. Sadness or anger don't begin to capture how I feel. Yikes. She going to cut off all her hair too? Women will continue to be denied basic health care. No, that's not true. Families will continue to fear for their children depending on how they show up in the world. A whole generation will grow up with a leader who is small and mean and full of hate. Trump's taller than me. He's like 6'3" or something like that. Maybe even 6'6". I can't remember if he's meaningfully taller than me. His son Barron's 6'9", which is crazy tall. Anyway, she continues. So if you woke up this morning feeling exhausted, feeling like no matter what we do, it doesn't matter, you are not alone. I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning yesterday, 3:30-ish. I think I went pee at 3, and I picked up my phone at 3:30, which was a mistake, but I was not sleeping. And I got up and I felt fine. And I woke up at 5:30 this morning. I went to bed at 10:30 last night. Like, I feel fine. I feel fine. I feel refreshed. I felt happy. I was like, oh, look at that. He won. Well, that's good. I mean, at least we don't have to go through what's he going to do now, right? He won. And I guess what's he going to do now? But like, I didn't feel, exhausted. I felt chipper, right? I was like, ooh, there's an extra spring in my step today. I know I got up early, but jeepers creepers, it's a beautiful day. She says, you're not alone. Well, I'm not sharing in it. Remember, she says, we are Nova Scotians. We are strong. We persevere through storms and wind, and today maybe even fear. We are not divided, but united. So hug your family a little harder, check in with friends, and take some time for yourself because of that U.S. presidential election. Looking on your neighbors, it's what makes us Nova Scotians. I mean, sure, I guess if you want to, and be like, high five because Trump won, woo, right? Like, Ryan Garrettson is responding to Andrew Coyne. Andrew Coyne wrote this piece for the Globe and Mail. Trump's election is a crisis like no other, but not only for the U.S., but the world, right? And Ryan says Andrew Coyne is psychologically abusing his readers. This type of crap needs to end. Sure does. Sure does. True North is trying to tie Poilievre to Trump through J.D. Vance. And she unintentionally is like, hey, like, conservatives have a Yale law guy in their cabinet. So like, he's a pretty smart guy, I guess. Or he knows people who knows people. He's also on TV. He knows people who knows people. Here we go.
Interesting thing about even what you see in this initial message from Pierre Poilievre is the idea that this is all about jobs. That exactly echoes the kind of rhetoric you do hear from the Trump campaign, that you hear from people who supported Donald Trump in the U.S. As voters. Going to just note, someone in Pierre Poilievre's caucus knows the minds of this incoming administration better than most. His name is Jamil Jivani. He is a Toronto area MP. He went to law school at Yale with the Vice President-elect J.D. Vance, knows him quite well.
At Yale? Wow.
He did not want to take any questions from us this morning. Reporters tried. But sort of someone very close to the mindset of the incoming administration sitting right there in Conservative caucus this morning. So
terrifying. Are you terrified? You should be terrified. You should be terrified. Go tell your children to be terrified about this terrifying, terrible event. Right? Jeepers creepers. Peanut makes his return. I mean, not really, but there's lots of squirrels. And Joe Rogan is noticing this. Catch Up says the spirit of Peanut making an appearance during Kamala's concession broadcast. Here we go. Peanut is in the corner here. Ta-da. You should never have killed me. I made Trump win. That kind of thing. So Peanut the squirrel trolling from beyond the grave. So, I mean, probably not. It's fun. Salty Goat says, am I the only one that feels like this is going way too easy and that there's something coming? They went from don't concede no matter what in 2020 to Kamala has already called Trump. No way the deep state just gives up power this easy, in my humble opinion. Yeah, I was worried about that. And I'm worried that they're going to use that schadenfreude. I'm not even saying it right now. I'm worried they're going to use that against us. I'm worried they're going to say, you guys are such sore winners. I have to tell you, I play hockey on Xbox usually on Friday nights. And video game wise, now, like when I was growing up, we got a Nintendo when Nintendo became a thing. Pretty early we got a Nintendo. My older brother wanted it and he bought it with his own money, and my parents said, you have to let the kids play it. So we lucked into that one. And then a Super Nintendo, same situation. And because of that, because we were playing with my older brother, Xbox Live didn't exist or anything like that, but like Super Mario Kart, and we learned to be terrible, awful winners. Like really, really bad winners. Like schadenfreude was not a word, and we were doing it all over the place. Like we loved beating people, and also we loved how terrible it felt for them and how good it felt for you, right? So we're terrible, terrible winners. And I feel like they're going to use this whole thing against us somehow. Here's Marjorie Taylor Greene agreeing with me, and she says, I think they're in the planning phases of what they're going to do. I think they had a plan, and as I said, I think they were already countered by Trump. When they decided to go with a plan and started running the numbers, they realized it was a non-starter. They couldn't do it. They couldn't pull it off. So they have to try something else. And what they're going to try, I don't know. Here we go.
We control the entire federal government. It doesn't matter what they try to do. We will be in control. Here's something else important to remind everyone of. This is the party that has weaponized the federal government against the American people, against President Trump, his former administration. They've also accused him of being a dictator. Like you said, we knew he wasn't. He was president for 4 years. You know what I heard on MSNBC this morning? I had to turn on Morning Joe because I was like, I can't wait to see how this goes. They were saying those same things. Peaceful transfer of power, and they were putting those same words on him as if he wasn't capable of it. But let's remember that on November 18th, in November, he has a sentencing hearing. And that comes from them weaponizing the justice system in New York against him. So I think I don't think the games are up. I think they're still coming. We just need to see. They're probably in the planning phase of what they're going to do. Be control.
That's exactly what I think. Exactly what I think. Let's talk about the 2020 election and how it was rigged. It was very, very rigged, and they manufactured enough ballots for Biden to win after using hammer and scorecard and then pausing counting in multiple swing states and taking those swing states, okay? Stealing those swing states, to be clear. Here's Raven, and he highlights this. This is taken from somebody else's tweet, but 2004, the number of votes cast was 121 million votes, excuse me. 2008, 129 million votes. 2012, 126 million votes. 2016, 128 million votes. 2020, 155 million votes. And 2024, 129 million votes. So of these 6 samples, 5 of them are in the 120s. And one of them is in the 150 millions, okay? 120 millions for all of the other ones and 150 million for 2020. That's weird, right? Damaged Phantom says, damn y'all, maybe we really did steal the 2020 election. And this person says, I'm so embarrassed right now. I can't believe we did that. Oh my gosh, the Democrats. Brian says, stunned Democrats are now trying to figure out how Biden got 81 million votes in 2020 and where the missing 20 million votes that Kamala should have gotten in 2024 went. Keep digging, Democrats, and you can see a flat line on 2012, 2016, and 2024 with regards to how many voters. And 2020 inexplicably has 80 million, and the other ones have 65 million, something like that. So it seems very finicky. Seems like there's something going on here, right? Eric says, if it hadn't been for Cotton Eye Joe, I'd been elected a long time ago. Ben, the reason that I highlighted this, Ben is a math guy, I guess, and he says it's within the margin of error. Democrat votes in 2020 and 2024 are within 95% forecast range of the 1976 to 2016 trend. So within the margin of error. So it's on the upper echelon, but it is still within the margin of error. I don't think so. Like, I don't think that 20 million people voted in 2024 or 2020 for Joe Biden who didn't show up in 2024. Like, I just don't think that's true, but who knows? Democrats are destroying America says overnight Slotkin received approximately 580,000 votes, 230,000 more than Mike Rogers, with only about 20% remaining to count, and Rogers had a 217,000 lead. So 3 a.m. Rogers was leading by hundreds of thousands of votes, and by 9:26 the Democrat was winning and looking to be elected, I guess. So that's not great, right? And it seems like if they can't steal the presidency, they're going to try and steal down ticket races in order to gum up the presidency from being able to do the stated goals that Trump has said that he's going to try and get done. John says, how can we have had record turnout and 20 million fewer votes cast nationally? So it doesn't make any logical sense. It seems like they stole the election. DC Drano, now also, here's some perspective, because the situation on the ground, if Trump stayed in office in 2020, was very unfriendly. He was not going to be able to get done what he needed to get done. And DC Drano says, think about this. If Trump won in 2020, he would have had a Democrat House and Senate, more impeachments, no Senate confirmations, no bills passed, and possibly the end of the MAGA movement as an effective political force. But now he has the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, a popular vote mandate, and an entire country that wants to clean up our elections, close our borders, deport illegals, and hold corrupt politicians accountable. Sometimes I think it had to happen this way. It had to happen this way. This was the Q plan. I'm sorry, but it definitely was the Q plan. Weird, right? Here's Dr. Ahmed, and he says, what would I do if I were Trump right now? It's just the first little bit, but here we go.
He's got this unprecedented opportunity. You know, he should immediately dismantle the deep state, get a task force, and slash and burn the CIA, the NSA, the FBI, the DOD, the FDA, the CDC, and all the other necessary bullshit deep state apparatus. He should abolish the Federal Reserve, this private banking system where the government is borrowing money from this bank and paying back into, and thereby put the Wall Street, BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street into an existential crisis, and then exit the UN. I mean, just don't talk about defunding. I'm sorry, we're not part of the UN. Bye-bye. We're not part of NATO. Bye-bye. And then also because of the previous actions, destroy the Bank of International Settlements, and then destabilize and bankrupt all the other shareholder reserve banks, end all wars, get the Palestinians and Israelis together, knock their heads, and sort out the peace deal there. And it's very simple. One country for all people, equal rights, job done. And that's it, you know. And oh yeah, and cancel all mRNA tech, stop indemnification of vaccines. If you want a vaccine, go ahead and take it. Make sure you get informed consent. But guess what? You're not indemnified anymore. NIH employees will not be paid royalties by Big Pharma anymore. There'll be no revolving.
You could do that in Ontario, like that. If I was Premier, Big Pharma's out of the healthcare system, and it's a private mix, and going away from government subsidies and Big Pharma getting anything at all, period. Bricks Info says, just in, Chinese President Xi Jinping holds telephone conversation with Donald Trump. I like that guy's short list. Sorry, just to go back to this. I like this guy's short list. The Israel solution, I think, is on the right path, but I don't know that it's that simple necessarily, because there's a whole political situation that happened from like 1917 to 1948, and then 1948 to 1976. And not that it needs rectification, but it does. You know what I mean? And so, like in 1917, the areas in the Ottoman Empire, but not the Ottoman Empire anymore, were kind of carved up, and Britain got what is now Palestine and Israel, and then held it until 1948. They told the Turks in Turkey, if you guys support us during the Second World War, we'll give you this land back. And then in 1948, they were like, haha, just kidding. And so like, there's a whole bunch of stuff that needs to get dealt with. And if we're going to fix it, we might as well fix it right. But fundamentally, like, you can't unring that bell either. So although Donald Trump says mass deportations, so if there's a way to do it, you know, let's get Trump in there. Anyway, regardless, it's a little bit more sticky than that, but I just wanted to say I think the short list is pretty good, and I think there are solutions. There are solutions. We just have to actually stop listening to these nutso communists. Speaking of nutso communists, Chinese President Xi Jinping holds a telephone conversation with Donald Trump. Right? There's a lot of weird stuff going on with China and the relationship with Canada, and China and its relationship with our elected officials, and China like running Canada kind of sort of. And so it's weird. Like it's weird. Like if Justin Trudeau or Pierre Poilievre got on the phone with Xi Jinping, I wouldn't say, oh, that's good or bad, or bad. I think it's probably bad. I don't think that they're discussing high levels stuff. I think they're taking orders, right? Like that's why it's bad. Whereas in this situation, I think that maybe there's a give and take, right? And so it seems to me like in Canada, the relationship is one-sided, whereas Xi gives the orders and Justin Trudeau limps away injured every time. Whereas in this situation, it seems like there may be equals. So we'll see. I don't know. Rob says, for all Americans, we wanted this for you. We love you. Team Kennedy. So this is Rob Schneider. Rob Schneider, not Kennedy, saying we love you, okay? It's weird when politicians tell you that they love you. Robert Kennedy Jr. says, FDA's war on public health is about to end. This includes its aggressive suppression of psychedelics, peptides, stem cells, raw milk, hyperbaric therapies, chelating compounds, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, vitamins, clean foods, sunshine, exercise, natural cells, I don't know what that is, and anything else that advances human health and can't be patented by big pharma. If you work for the FDA and are part of this corrupt system, I have 2 messages for you. 1, preserve your records, and 2, pack your bags. And I think that's very interesting. And here I said, even the chemtrails, and especially the chemtrails. Here is Robert Kennedy Jr. responding to Concerned Citizen. Concerned Citizen says, I call them tanker terminators, were paid more than any other pilot. Chemtrail pilot whistleblowers. I'm convinced that the majority of them are remotely operated. The tech obviously exists and there are way too many. Yeah, like the skies look unbelievable these days. And Robert Kennedy is responding in this tweet here. He says, we're going to stop this crime. So I hope that's true. And I hope that that's something that can be done. I've heard an old premier of BC, but in modern times, tried to stop the spraying and he couldn't because he couldn't figure out the source of it. And that seems not unlikely, but disconcerting considering if you're the premier of the province, you should be able to figure out what's in your skies, right? And if you can't, you should be able to action something that can help you, right? Like Jack says, breaking, RFK Jr. tells MSNBC that he will clear out the entire Food and Drug Administration, the FDA. They're not protecting our kids, he says. And I'll let him say it. Here we go.
You say clearing out the corruption in your terms. Would that mean clearing out the top level federal service workers that are currently at the FDA and the CDC?
In some categories, I would say.
What does that look like? Yeah.
In some categories of workers, there are entire departments, like the nutrition departments at FDA, that have to go. That are not doing their job. They're not protecting our kids. Why do we have Fruit Loops in this country that have 18 or 19 ingredients, and you go to Canada and it's got 2 or 3?
Would you eliminate any of the agencies?
To eliminate the agencies, as long as it requires congressional approval, I wouldn't be doing that. And I can get the corruption out of the agencies. This is what I've been doing for 40 years. I've sued all those agencies. I have a PhD in corporate corruption, and that's what I do. And once they're not corrupt, once Americans are getting good science and are allowed to make their own choices, they're going to get a lot healthier.
You say clearing out the corruption in your terms. Would that mean...
I feel healthier when I eat Fruit Loops instead of American Fruit Loops, so... Not really. I don't eat Fruit Loops. It's not chocolatey enough. But it smells delicious. Here is Camus. He says, this is key. Robert Kennedy is talking about he doesn't want to take vaccines away from people, but it's 3 minutes long. So I don't know that we're going to listen to this whole thing. This is Robert Kennedy fleshing out his thing. I think he may be a contender in the coming years after Trump's gone. He may be somebody to carry the banner, but we'll see. Again, Trump doesn't really like Kennedy's position on oil and gas, and it is a concerning position on oil and gas. Pierre Poilievre congratulates Donald Trump. He says, congratulations to Donald J. Trump on his election as the 47th president of the United States. The U.S. is Canada's best friend and biggest trading partner, and I will work with the president to benefit both countries. My mission? Save our jobs. The U.S. has already taken $500 billion of investment in jobs from Canada under 9 years of Trudeau, and our people cannot afford homes and food. Yesterday's results confirm we must cancel Trudeau's plan to quadruple the carbon tax and hike other taxes, which would push hundreds of thousands of more jobs south, where President Trump will be cutting taxes even further. We must axe taxes, bring home our paychecks, save our jobs, stand up for Canada. So he didn't even tag Donald Trump in this. Like, weak. You got to tag Donald Trump in it. Chrystia Freeland's again talking about this. The Canada-U.S. partnership is absolutely fundamental to the economies of both countries. We're looking forward to once again working with President Trump to ensure shared prosperity. Here's Freeland just a little bit.
The Canada-U.S. partnership.
I already read it, and I don't want to listen to her say what I just said. Here's a different one from her. True North is reporting Deputy Prime Minister Freeland is repeatedly asked whether the Trudeau government has a plan to manage an anticipated surge in migrants crossing from the U.S. into Canada if mass deportations occur under a Trump administration. The answer is no, but Chrystia Freeland keeps talking around it.
Donald Trump has promised mass deportations. J.D. Vance has said it would be reasonable to expect that they could deport 1 million people a year. Is the federal government planning there will be a surge of migrants crossing from the U.S. into Canada?
Thanks for the question, Mackenzie. And again, what Americans choose to do, what America's incoming elected administration chooses to do in the United States is a decision for Americans and American leaders. The decision for Canadians and what's important for Canadians is to control our own border. And that is something that's really important. It's fundamental. And I do want to assure Canadians that we absolutely recognize the importance of border security and of controlling our own border, of controlling who comes into Canada and who doesn't, and we will do that.
The RCMP has said that folks in Quebec could see, with a Trump win, more people crossing. And just to ask again, is there a plan in place, or are you expecting that more people will be crossing from the U.S. to come to Canada to avoid being deported?
What I am expecting is that Canadians expect us to control our border. Canadians quite rightly believe that it needs to be a decision of Canada and Canadians who comes to our country and who doesn't. And that is something that we absolutely have a plan to ensure.
Can we see this plan? Do you have an outline anywhere? Anything online? No? Weird. So Donald Trump's victory and all of the rest of it seems it's pending. And I mean, we have to wait until January 20th, until his day one, and we'll see. So we'll see what happens. I'm sure there's going to be news between now and then. And I'll keep an eye on if they try and derail his presidency. They tried, like his inauguration, excuse me. They tried, and they say that they're going to do something on January 6th. But again, just like the chess analogy, I think Trump will have countered them before they've even started drawing up their plans, right? I think that he's playing a higher level game than his opponents, and they don't even realize yet. That's what I think. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about the elections. Hello everyone, thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to canadapoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful